do a quick 360 for everybody. Because today's been like a whirlwind. I'm starting to get a little dizzy. This is the second video I'm shooting today. And look at this, where am I? You know where I am? I'm at the plant kingdom. The plant kingdom of this guy right here, Joe Ambriz. Say hello, everybody.
How's it going, everyone?
All right, so today I'm linking up with Joe. I'm out here in
Carpinteria, California.
And so I actually met Joe, God, it must have been two or 3 years ago.
Many moons ago.
I believe it was at the Conejo Cactus.
That's it.
And succulent sale, if I'm not mistaken. And that reminds me, I owe Linda Holub a call. I need to let her know whether or not I'm going to do it this year.
Yes, let her
I'm sorry, Linda. Hopefully I've called you by the time this video goes up.
I just got back to her.
3 kids, and my memory is a little bit, it's like a dumpster fire, if I'm being completely honest. So today, we're going to be doing some greenhouse tours. And what's great is that it's, you know, we're getting like, it's extra bang for your buck because it's not one greenhouse. No, not at the Kingdom of Plants. There's 3. We're stepping out of the wheelhouse, the normal Huntero Cactus Questaiensis greenhouse wheelhouse. And today we're going to be looking at all kinds of plants. And I got to tell you, I'm really excited because whether you know it or not, my love affair with plants began many, many moons ago when I was in high school on my mom's patio, place where I would go and, you know, just a little on the patio, you know, don't tell my mom. But I loved the plants. She had a lot of succulents, but she had all kinds of stuff. And so today I'm going to be getting a tour from my man Joe, and we're going to dive into his greenhouses where he grows
a little of everything.
All kinds of stuff. So
let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. So this is Stella.
Stella. Say hi to everybody, Stella. Oh, who's a good girl?
She's a good baby. She's always my baby.
Oh, my goodness.
So as we walk in here, we're going to see a lot of, this is going to be the platyceriums, a lot of the staghorns, tillandsias, bromeliads. Been really getting into a lot of these platyceriums.
Oh my gosh.
And this is kind of a newer hybrid called White Swallow. Super rad. On the ones I'm kind of growing that I'll end up sporing and making new hybrids of, I like taking a little more time on the mounts, and so I do a technique they call a Shaoshugiban, which is this burning technique that they'll do on the cedar panels on the temples in Japan.
Yeah.
And when we actually burn it to a black char, and then I take a wire brush and remove all the black char, and then it's left with this super rad stain and eats away all the softwood that gives us this kind of an old texture, gives it more of an aged look, but more than anything, it actually seals the wood in, allows it to last a little longer, and the charcoal for the plants is just good. But yeah, and it makes it look a little nicer too, allows the plants to real pop on
they pop way more off the darker wood.
Because redwood on its own is kind of pink when you don't do it like that. It'll gray up over a little time, but yeah, so the burn really makes a nice little look.
Good God, dude.
Those are grandes, so that's a species, a giant queen of platycerium from the Philippines.
Wow. And that one looks like a rooster right there, like it's shaped like
a they get these wild forms, definitely.
Gosh, that is so cool. So I'm just gonna let you know right now, this is super exciting to me because I love this kind of stuff. I know I'm in uncharted waters right now. So this is like, everything is new and exciting to me today.
Nice,
which is not that it's not normally, but I'm saying like this is all like brand new to me.
This is a form of bifurcatum. Bifurcatum is like this, and these guys here, that's most people that have seen a staghorn have seen bifurcatum, but this is a really more compact broadleaf form called Bifurcatum Netherlands. That's super rad. And then what I like to do is mount them up rather than just a little handful of moss, really mound them up, and then we're able to water a lot less, and it's almost like having a 6-inch pot of mix back there. And then it just looks real clean.
Now, I'm curious, behind, what do you call this part of the plant?
So this would be the shield or the husk.
So the shield, I like husk better actually. So what's behind the husk? Does this thing have roots of any kind? Or?
Yeah, so it's actually like a little rhizome. So like if that apex right there got shot, that plant would be done. So it's this rhizome right at that apex. It will spread.
So let me just ask you real quick, because I think
Yeah.
So is this like on this one here? Is this a new husk coming in from a rhizome?
New shield, yep, exactly, from that center apical meristem.
That is rad. And that's grande as well?
Those are all grande right there. And then this one right here, these are elephantotus. These ones are, just got these mounted, so they're a little funky in the pots. These ones really don't like being in pots during the winter time unless you heat. So I mounted them, and you could see this beautiful new shield coming out, and that'll start cleaning them up. Sometimes, like what you'll see with the shield, how it's getting in the way of the new one. So I need to come and do this to it. See how I'm pulling that back with just a little thread? Now that'll allow the new shield to develop real nicely, or right there, I'm pulling that back so those new shields could actually properly develop. Because these will give us this real wrinkly back shield with these giant elephant ear-like leaves that come out of it, which are our spore fronds. And the spore fronds are the ones that will pendulate and eventually give us actually spores. Elephantotus.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then this is one of my favorite. This is Superbum. Superbum's an Australian species, and this, like Grande, look very similar when they're young, but becomes massive. This will have over a 3-foot shield crown on top when it's specimen size. And it'll take probably 8 to 10 years from spore to produce actual spore fronds. It just keeps putting these massive shields. I'll probably get these to cover this mount by the time it starts putting out some spore fronds.
That is incredible.
That looks super rad.
So
it's one of my favorites, that one.
I can see why. It's got what I want to call like trichomes, or as they call it, scurfing, as they call it with Dickeas and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it totally has trichromes all over it, and that's what's helping to extract, like Tillandsias. All these Tillandsias that we see white or fuzzy or gray or silver, those are 1000% trichromes that are producing that coloration. They almost give it like a shade cloth aspect to the plant to protect it. So the higher silver Tillandsias that are like real silvery white, those generally grow higher elevation and more sun exposure. Like Tectorum is almost fuzzy because it's found growing on cacti in Peru and Ecuador. So, and that's the other thing that I love about the massive realm of different plants I grow, especially the orchids as we get over there with my cacti, is especially people that love mammillaria and Mexican cactus from Brazil. All these plants grow with them.
I was literally I was just thinking
grow
that.
with them. And the only difference is maybe the orchids or Tillandsias have filtered lighting rather than 8 hours of full sun exposure, but they're all growing in the same environment.
100%.
Tony has the most amazing picture he took in Oaxaca. It's he sent it to me when he was there. You might have been with him.
Maybe. I have been to Oaxaca with him.
And it's a tree with had Tillandsia jonesea. It had Oncidium orchids growing on it, Tillandsias growing on it, a mammillaria growing
on the
epiphytically on the tree with the Tillandsias. In the background, you see like cycad type things, Philadelphia. I mean, so it's just really cool when we see these things really living together, where they're not so different.
In Chiapas, when I was there with Kelly Griffin and Jeremy Spath, I was stunned at at the very first site that we went to. It was the type locality for Agave ithmensis.
Sick.
And so they're growing in this open field where there's a lot of like cattle grazing. So it's fairly open, and you've got growing there. You had the bullhorn acacia, you know that one?
Yep.
It has that
Stay
relationship
careful.
with the plants, with the ants rather. And then we crossed the road, and you kind of go into more of a tropical kind of thicket. And we had hoped to get to these giant boulders that were like popping out like a little further over, but we ended up not making it. But trying to get through there, not only did we see all kinds of different Tillandsias, orchids growing epiphytically, strangler figs growing in the crotch of trees. And then, did I already say orchids? But then down in this one little, like, deep little, like, kind of ravine, not really a canyon because it was probably 20, 30 feet deep, you had monsteras.
Crazy.
And I was like, what in the world? It's the coolest thing. And then I forget where we were down, a little further down, and I'll put the picture so you guys can see it, but down at the site for agave pygmaea, which in my opinion is just, it's meant to just growing out of pure limestone, but hey, what do I know, you know? But at that site, there is one of these, I don't know houseplants very well, but it's like a super popular, kind of a thick, semi-succulent, like leaf on a vine. Leaves are about this big, and it was variegated. There's bursaras there. There were hectias, mammillarias, and oh my gosh, echeverias.
That's wicked.
Super cool.
Love that.
Super cool.
That's
nice.
So I've been having fun doing this whole technique on the wood, and where I'll do them real naturally on the cork bark, which is really rad because all these are growing on the oak trees in South Mexico and down south. Real natural look. But what's cool about doing this kind of a cedar burning technique is it gives it a little contemporary kind of a vibe for all the designers and stuff. And I use this like aluminum up top to make the hook and stuff like that. And but awesome. Really cool going from like something that's real natural to like a more contemporary vibe on them.
Oh yeah.
Super
This
fun.
is a wild one. What's the name of this Tillandsia?
So that's Tillandsia doradii. Man, this thing, I try to keep the flower spike on it, but it broke. It was probably about 3 times as long as that. You could see that brown spike.
Yeah.
This thing puts out dozens and dozens of sequential purple flowers. We call it blue, but like these purple flowers that smell like grape. I mean, like, you know, like, remember that grape pixie candy back in the day? The little tubes of sugar, basically?
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, it reminds me of that grape pixie stick.
Wild.
And just totally grape candy fragrance. They're so cool. But this is a giant form of doradii. So this one gets really massive.
You know, I've only seen this kind of, like, I've seen this particular Tillandsia once before, and I've seen like the kind of like Tillandsia's mouth like that.
Yeah.
In John Martinez's greenhouse.
Oh, dude, John Martinez the man. Yeah,
I love that
for
guy,
sure.
Dude. I love that guy.
Oh, John's the
You're probably
man,
not watching
dude.
this, but if you are, shout out to you, John.
What's up, John? Man, amazing grower. He's
love that
got
guy.
the awesome collection. Paleaceae, yeah, there's some Jonesii in bloom, and that's another thing. A lot of people go, wait, they bloom? Like, oh yes.
Oh yeah.
That's a big plus. One of the things about Tillandsia, what's cool though, is there's so many forms, from dwarf forms like this. I wouldn't really call this dwarf, but like more smaller forms.
In Oaxaca, I saw one that must have been about that big, that literally looked like it had, like it looked bedazzled.
This is this is really cool. This is the albino form of Ionantha. Ionantha is a form that we generally, like most people have seen with Tillandsias. And I'll show you the other, what they usually look like. And when they blush and flower, all the Tillandsias, when they flower, they generally blush, just like this. So most Ionanthas are purple flowered with the red blush, and this is an albino mutation we call druid that produces a pure white flower and blushes yellow.
Wow.
Because it's pigmentless.
That's cool.
And what's cool about these, there's different forms. That's a form from Mexico. And when the form in Guatemala tend to be thin, fine-leafed, and more open, like an agave, like they almost look like little agaves, but then they'll turn into clusters like this.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I'll grow them on the table, and then what's rad about Tillandsia is they're monocarpic, like a bromeliad. So when they bloom, that plant will eventually cease to exist, but it'll make a whole bunch of offsets. So eventually you go from one, and then you get something like that bloom last year. So this is starting to die back, but it produced 2. Then those
Very
2
cool.
start creating these mounds. And then I take the mound, boom, hang it upside down, and all the new growth starts coming upwards. And then we get the balls. That's super rad.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, this is a pretty old cluster.
Yeah.
But yeah, then it looks super rad like that. Come on.
Right.
Oh, I wish this was open. This cluster right here is about to bloom. But you can check out look at how long these inflorescents are.
Ooh.
These are gonna branch and, oh, let's see. Smell that, dude.
Oh my goodness. Whoa.
Isn't that wicked?
That's coming from that tiny little flower. That
Like
is
a-
wild.
Like a spicy gardenia or spicy jasmine or I don't
Yeah.
know, something sweet but has a little
Yeah,
kick
it does.
to
It does smell like gardenia quite a bit, actually.
And this will sequentially keep blooming for the next week or so.
They are
a few weeks.
They are dazzling when they
That's
bloom.
what's cool. There's so all the tillandsias bloom. Some have some are a little inconspicuous, so we're growing them for like the plant form.
Right.
But some have like super striking bloom sets, and or fragrance. And there's a lot that are fragrant. That's a tectorum. Those are from Ecuador, and you can find those growing on cacti in Ecuador.
So this is
super
kind of
wicked.
like, this is more in the vein of what that one, I'll have to find a picture and send it to you.
I mean, look, see how fuzzy it is?
That's kind of how that one I was
crazy.
telling you, it was super, super fuzzy.
Or check this ladder. This is just kind of cool right here. But this is going into bloom right now. You'll see two more up there. But what's cool about some of these, you'll just see the inflorescence on its own that comes out the apex of the plant.
Right.
Super impressive. And they sometimes create these ribbons off of it.
It's like, what, like a yard long?
Or something like this. This is Tillandsia secunda. Check out this inflorescence.
Good Lord.
Isn't that wicked?
Whoa.
And of course, there's no flowers.
I was gonna
coming
say,
out
so
right now.
this hasn't even
But
opened yet, huh?
There are, but they're finishing. And when the flowers come out, they're almost black. It's
Whoa.
so dark purple, they're almost black. And what's rad about secunda is most tillandsias do this. They'll offset at the base.
Right.
Where secunda, like Mimichilensis, will offset at the base, and every node that put on this inflorescence will make offsets.
Oh, that's cool. So then does the nodes
You
stay
get like,
there?
Yeah, these all just hang out, and there'll be like 50, these will be all these plants just kicking it on here.
Wow.
And then I go and I pluck them off, and then you're like,
Oh, okay.
and then there's a crop from a couple mother plants that just bloomed.
How do you feel about the term air plants? Like, I always feel like it's a little bit of a misnomer.
Yeah, it's easy for people to remember because when I say, they always come back with tillandsia as some very unusual way of saying tillandsia. But so I mean, if it adapts and it's people like, but one thing is people got to realize is they need water, but no soil.
Right.
And so people get them, oh, air plants, cool, and then they will maybe mist them every month or whatever, and that's not enough.
Right.
When that's the one thing we lack here, especially like central to Southern California, is that constant humidity.
Sure.
When it gets hot.
Yeah.
So we need what I like to do, and what I found for somebody at home that just has a nice handful or two in their collection, throw them in a bowl of water once a week and give them like a 30-minute soaking. That's going to greatly rehydrate them, and then also allow them to dry, because we want them to dry in between the waterings. They should actually dry by nightfall the day they're watered. And so then giving a soaking really allows them to actually take in that water, rehydrate, and then they're kind of good to go. A lot more than a misting. A lot of people are like, I mist it like 2-3 times a week. But if you go and mist it on a warm day, and like in 5-10 minutes,
it's gone.
It just evaporated, and there's actually no hydration. So if we're gonna do the mist, I'd like to wet it, keep it wet, come back, wet it again, come back, wet it again, so it's actually wet. When I hand water all these. There's probably about, at 3 greenhouses, 60,000 plants, all hand watered by me.
But you've got an injection system with a hose, I'm imagining, right?
In this house, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this house, I have an injector. That one, I still got to hook one up. But what I do is I do a pass, and as I get through, I come in through do a second pass. And if it's in the hottest summer, I'll put the fogger nozzle on.
Yeah.
So when I come to that second pass, I'm like going through a lot slower, and it's also not wasting as much water, just falling down. So I try to use the fogger more, but I'm trying to really keep them wet for like 30 minutes when I do water.
Okay.
Then they're more stoked. And if something's greatly dehydrated, you'll see the plants will be cupping. So these leaves will be cupped just like that.
Ah, the leaves themselves.
See the boom.
Yeah.
And then
because agaves will do that, but the whole plant will kind of will sort of like
almost
tighten
like when
up.
you see my peglorae, it's like my aloe's like doo-doo.
Yeah.
But in nature, it's like all curled, right? So these will do that to their leaves, where rather than be nice and open, and obviously there's a natural curve to them, they will be pinched like that.
Gotcha.
That's a sign of extreme hydration. What I'll do is take that, throw it in water, and I'll be like, okay, I'll see you in the morning.
Now, is that water just straight out of the hose, or is it like...
If you have RO, I mean, use it.
Which is reverse osmosis.
Reverse a good clean water, but I'm a poor person, so eventually one day I'll have some RO. I'll get one day. I'll get one day.
Me too.
Right now,
and you know what? I don't even have the injection system, so I'm literally watering with a watering can. And you know, so which is a good time for me to remind you guys that if you enjoy this content and you'd like to support the work that I'm doing, go ahead and hit that link in the description and become a Patreon member. You can support for as little as $2 a month. You know, if you're like me, you know, poor, and if you're part of the top 1/10 of 1%, then you can support for as high as $25 a month. So it's totally up to you. And if none of that is up, you know, floating your boat, just keep watching and like it and share it with people. Anyway,
and
moving right along.
And the Dositron, I was actually, man, bless Ed Lysick of the 5 Cities Orchid Society. He gifted me a Dositron about a year ago, and straight up has changed my life in here. From trying to use your siphon injectors that are like dripping out, you know, you're like throwing water on, but actually have water flow is amazing. So
do you know? Tell me about this guy up here. This is the ant plant.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Let me see which one this is because I was growing a few. So yeah, this is the Myrmecodia. Probably saying it wrong because I don't do a lot of these. There's one Myrmecephala, I believe, but this is the Myrmecodia platytera. Super rad. They actually grow on the trees in Australia, I believe, like Queensland, that side. And they have a semibiotic relationship with ants. The ant they have there, I've never seen it happen with our European ants here. But if I was to cut that caudex open, and that's what's cool. I grow obviously a lot of epiphytes, so to have an epiphytic caudiciform is super fun.
Yeah,
rad.
for sure.
So if I was to slice that open, you would actually see a lot of caves inside the plant, and it naturally grows these caves and crevices within itself for the ants and whatnot will come and live in, and then they protect the plant and vice versa, which
sort
is
of like
wild.
the bullhorn acacia.
Just like the acacia, yeah, which is wild because here the ants are farming the bugs and making it worse.
I know.
Here they're protecting in this aspect with that ant in that endemic aspect. They're protecting it and working with them, which is super cool.
Speaking of ants and pests and bugs and stuff like that, are these relatively pest prone, or?
You know, that's what's great about Tillandsia is not a lot of like, I've never dealt with like scale. Like you might deal with some millibug here and there, or if you have an area that gets, what I've had is moths will like to lay their larvae right in the apex here. Nice Tillandsia. So when it wakes up, it just starts grubbing down the apex and destroys it. So I've had that, but even something natural like spinosad will take care of that during like a hard season if there's a lot out. But really, maybe a little millibug here and there, but very little. On the staghorns, scale, but a little bit, but scale and millibug is what I've seen on them. But very easy to clean off and take care of for sure.
Dude, this is really, really cool.
Hard part about the Tillandsia is unlike my orchids, with spraying and organics, you can't use an oil on these. Just like if you were to say spray an Echeveria with neem oil, right? That's like super powdery.
Yeah, I don't use any oils at all.
It just looks horrible, right? We can't use oils on these.
In the realm of botanical enthusiasts, a peculiar breed exists. Those who cultivate the rare and the extraordinary. They are not mere gardeners, but rather stewards of the Earth's most unique flora. With a gentle touch and a keen eye, they nurture these botanical wonders, ensuring their survival for generations to come.
This is a pretty cool plant from South America. This is Epidendrum parkinsonianum.
Epidendrum?
Yeah, where most epidendrums are very upright, and so this is this is how it grows under the tree branches. So almost like if that basket was a tree branch, that's how they'd be growing and falling off of them like that from the base.
Where are these from?
I want to say this actually is from Mexico, but I would have to.
Epidendrum.
Yeah.
This is so
I'm gonna
cool.
double check park. This one specifically. So yeah, Mexico down to Central America.
Wow. Is this so? The leaves are, I don't know if you can
Super
tell this,
thick
they're
and
really
succulent.
thick. So is this considered, is this like a succulent epiphyte?
Oh. All the epiphytes I would say this, all the epiphytic orchids are succulent in their nature of growing, right? So
Maybe not necessarily doing cam photosynthesis, or?
they have massive water storage.
Okay.
Right, so this plant, you can see what it's growing
Is this
on.
an orchid?
Yeah, this is an orchid.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you look, I'm growing this in rock, bark, and number 4 perlite.
Whoa.
So you talk about something being low water, talk about using pumice and whatnot. I'm using 3/4 inch rock, number 4 perlite, and just equivalent size bark. And this will just become a basket of roots
Dude,
over
that is
time.
Insane. That thing is so
And
cool.
so this is like a massive water storage here. So if I was to like go away for long periods of time, it would start sucking its own, utilizing that own water here.
Wow.
Or like these are encyclias from Mexico.
Now
Love
I've seen these.
encyclias. Dude,
I've seen these. So
really
if
rad.
you guys, for those that have been around for a minute, first of all, shout out to you guys, and second of all, you guys saw these in the Chiapas video. These were growing. On the trees right there. We're at Ismensis type locality.
And a lot of these encyclias we'll find growing as lithophytes, literally on rocks. So check this out. This is really rad. My buddy, you probably know my buddy Nick. This guy Nick Deinhardt.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So what up, Nick? So
We went to Coahuila together.
well, he was in Nayarit. Did you go when he was?
No,
okay.
no.
So he was in Nayarit, and he comes out to this big crop of these rocks and whatnot, and there's all these orchids. He was like, he was like, there's these orchids growing, and so he was able to get a seed pod. And so he's like, I'm like, yeah, dude, you just gotta send it to the lab. Whoop de whoop, this is what you gotta do. And he's like, yeah, I don't do orchids. So he gave me the seed, send it to me, send him the send the seed pod into the lab, and boom, 4 years later.
That's rad.
Now, this is a long process with breeding orchids and doing orchids from seed. It's an extremely long process. And I have some of the bigger ones in my collection. There's a few real nice big ones. So these are literally from the seed pod that he got, and he has pictures of the mother plants growing on the rock, and the roots are in full sun, spread out on the rock.
That's rad.
Which is just super cool. And then as I'm researching what it could possibly be, there's actually 2 encyclia specifically from Nayarit that aren't found anywhere else really. So this actually could be one of the endangered forms.
Wow.
Which is another really cool thing that I'm really trying to get down my deflasking, because with orchids, as you'll see right now, when I do a cross, it takes about anywhere from 4 to 9 months for that seed pod to ripen.
Okay.
Then I harvest that seed pod green, like you'll see one right here. Oops, sorry. Like, so this guy, just waiting a couple more months for this guy to ripen. And this is across the Siam Jade by a Steve Stevenson Big Giant Green. And when this is ripe, I'll harvest this, but we cannot sow it out like we do any other plant, whether it's vegetables, cactus, or whatever. This has to be done, one, it needs a certain mycorrhizal fungi that will actually inoculate and get the seed to germinate. Otherwise, it just won't.
Interesting.
So therefore, it has to be done on agar with the proper chemicals in a lab. And since it has to be in a sealed flask, if any chemical gets, a pathogen, anything gets in there, those seeds are wiped out. So it has to be completely.
So it's almost like TC.
Completely, like how they do TC labs. If you've seen a TC lab,
Yeah.
that's an orchid lab. Exactly.
Okay.
So we send that up about a year to 2 years later. I get my babies back in flask, and then I put those into plug trays. That's 1 year.
Interesting.
Plug trays, they'll go to 2 inch. These are, and that's another year. So these are about 3-4 years old in the 2 inch. And then once they're looking good in the 2 inch, I'll go into a 3 inch. Sometimes if they're looking real good, I'll go right to a 4. But now they're in a 3-inch, and now I get to sell it for $20 to $25 5 years later.
Hey, listen, it's an instant gratification type of thing, you know? That's what we're in the plants for, because we want things now.
And then we go to the 4-inch, and within a year to two in a 4-inch, we'll see a bloom. Here's a first bloom. So this is the first time this plant has ever bloomed in its life.
Oh my God, dude.
And this
All right,
is its
am
first
I?
bloom.
Oh, I can already feel it. Oh no, am I getting ready to start going down? No, I have to have. I have to exercise some self-control.
So this is how we find them. Check it out. This is what's rad about these is this is how they're actually growing and how we could grow them. Check out this Laelia lundii from Brazil. This is a dwarf Cattleya or Laelia.
Oh my gosh.
They used to all be Laelias, but now taxonomists have put only the Laelias in Mexico are now considered Laelias. So the Mexican Laelias are the true Laelias. So all the Brazilian plants we called Laelia lundii or purpurata are now all called Cattleya. Some of us still call them Laelias. But yeah, check the back. Look at that plant. Talk about
That is incredible.
growing off a tree epiphytically. Now, we could water it more, but as you can see, like I'm in myself and I in here, and so I water this about twice a week, and it's super happy, super stoked. Especially set up a little cheap little misting system on your mounted stuff, and eventually I'll have a wall right there. When I have a wall, I'll just have a simple little misting system. And if you could water them, you could water them literally every day. I love when people are like, oh, I love watering, that's like my thing. I'm like, oh, mount them. You could water these every day once you mount them.
Whoa.
That's a super rad little plant called Dendrobium jenskii.
Dendrobium jenskii?
Jenskii.
Jenskii.
Yeah, from Thailand.
So is it an orchid?
Yeah, these are all orchids, yeah.
Wow. This is just, I don't even know what the flower looks like, but that itself is like pretty awesome.
So in the spring, imagine quarter-size, golden quarter-size flowers pendulating off of that.
Nice. Okay.
That smell like honey.
So okay, you know the like the little like the silver dollar or whatever, the little round thing from Madagascar that's on a vine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you take that, right, and then you cross it with a little liverwort.
Yeah. Boom. There you go.
And that's what you get, dude.
And this is what's rad. Just like how we propagate cactus and succulents and whatnot by taking cuttings. This on that mother plant I just showed you. I just took cuttings that were like 3 to 5 bulb cuttings. I tied on with some moss, and now it's rooted, new growth, and there's all these little blooms coming, buds coming out right now.
That's awesome.
I am a humanoid robot sent from the distant future to talk to you about business. Cactus Quest would like to invite you to become a monthly supporter on Patreon. You can opt in for as low as 2 ridiculous little scroungy dirty little dollars a month. That's less than the price of a half-decent cappuccino. This would mean the world to Hunter, as he is working day and night to bring you this succulent garden type shit, you feel me? So what are you waiting for? Websites are standing by. By that I mean click the link in the description of the video and become a Patreon supporter, man. No, seriously man, Hunter has a serious cappuccino habit and it costs money.